400 kilometers above the ground you are standing on right now, 3 people are eating Kung Pao chicken with chopsticks, watching television dramas, and sleeping in private rooms with windows that look directly down at Earth. They are not aboard a cramped Cold War capsule. They are not squeezed into a Soviet-era tin can held together by decades of international compromise. They are living inside a space station that was completely non-existent just a few years ago, built by a country that was legally banned from participating in the only other one, and designed from a blank page to make everything that came before it look like the past. This is not a story about catching up. This is a story about what happens when you force an entire civilization to start over from scratch and give them 20 years to get it right. China's Tiangong space station, which translates as Heavenly Palace, orbits Earth at roughly 400 kilometers altitude, completing one full lap of the planet every 90 minutes. It has been continuously occupied since June 2021. One taikonaut is currently designated to remain aboard for one full continuous year, the first time China has ever attempted this. The station is not a prototype. It is not a test platform. It is a permanently operating national laboratory in orbit, and it is not slowing down. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what life inside Tiangong looks and feels like, why the engineering decisions China made produce a fundamentally different experience from anything that has come before, and what a former NASA commander means when he says that after the ISS retires, China may be the only station in orbit. Subscribe now and hit the like button so you never miss what we cover next. To understand why Tiangong exists at all, you need to go back to a piece of American legislation that almost nobody outside the space industry has heard of. In 2011, the United States Congress passed what became known as the Wolf Amendment, named after Representative Frank Wolf of Virginia. The amendment prohibits NASA from using any government funds to engage in direct bilateral cooperation with the Chinese government or any Chinese-owned company for any purpose without explicit authorization from both the FBI and Congress. The stated justification was preventing technology transfer with dual-use military implications. Wolf himself said his goal was to limit collaboration until China showed improvements in its human rights record. China was effectively banned from the International Space Station program entirely. Here is what the people who passed that amendment did not anticipate. China looked at the ban and decided not to lobby for inclusion. They decided to build their own. And because they had to design everything from scratch without access to decades of accumulated ISS operational knowledge, they ended up making design choices that a program built on legacy systems would never have made. The ban intended to hold China back ended up forcing them to leapfrog. Analysts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies have described the Wolf Amendment as having incentivized China to accelerate its space development programs rather than constrain them. That assessment looks increasingly accurate with every mission that launches. China's path to Tiangong went through 2 stepping stones. Tiangong 1 launched in 2011, the same year as the Wolf Amendment, and Tiangong 2 followed in 2016. Both were small, single-module laboratories, not permanently crewed stations. Every failure and success fed directly into the permanent station that followed. By the time China was ready to build Tiangong, it had a decade of operational knowledge and a design team that had never been constrained by compatibility with any existing system. In April 2021, the Tianhe core module launched from Wentian Space Launch Center atop a Long March 5B rocket. Tianhe means heavenly harmony. 16.6 meters long, 4.2 meters in diameter, approximately 22,000 kilograms in mass. It contains the node cabin at the front, managing docking, the life control cabin in the middle, where the crew lives and works, and the resource cabin at the rear, handling power and propulsion. The node cabin carries a large robotic arm with a load capacity of 25 tons. Everything else on the station connects to or flows through Tianhe. In July 2022, the Wentian module joined the station. Wentian means asking the heavens. 17.9 meters long, approximately 23,000 kilograms at launch. It added a fully equipped science laboratory, additional sleeping quarters, a backup control station capable of running the entire station independently if Tianhe's primary systems fail, a dedicated spacewalk airlock, and a second robotic arm 5 meters long. 3 months later, the Mengtian module completed the configuration. Mengtian means dreaming of the heavens. Identical dimensions to Wentian, dedicated almost entirely to research, with a cargo airlock for deploying experiments to the exterior without spacewalks, and external mounting platforms for instruments studying fluid physics, combustion science, and space materials. The full 3-module T-shaped configuration was complete 18 months after the first launch. The ISS took over a decade to reach its final configuration. Stand inside Tiangong, and the first thing that registers is the space. Not a lack of it, the presence of it. The ISS evolved by connecting modules designed by multiple countries across multiple decades, each with different standards, different equipment layouts, different cable management approaches. The result is a station that experienced astronauts navigate confidently, but that looks to outside observers like an extremely complex machine that people happen to live inside. Tiangong was designed as a single, coherent system from the beginning. The cables and conduits that run visibly along nearly every ISS corridor are routed behind smooth, white panels here. Much of the equipment communicates wirelessly, eliminating tangled cable bundles. The LED lighting is tuned to reduce visual fatigue. The result is an environment that looks and feels deliberately designed for human occupation rather than assembled around technical necessity. The dimensions matter. Each Tiangong module is 4.2 meters in diameter, essentially the same as ISS modules. But the Wentian and Mengtian modules each stretch 17.9 meters in length. The ISS Destiny Laboratory, America's primary research module, is 8.4 meters long. China's science modules are more than twice as long. Fewer pressure bulkheads, fewer narrow transition points, a much more continuous workspace. Total confirmed crew activity space is no less than 110 square meters. For a permanent crew of 3, that is generous by any standard in the history of orbital habitation. Each of the 3 crew members has a private sleeping compartment with its own lighting controls, its own storage, and a window positioned so the taikonaut can look directly at Earth from their bunk. In the history of human spaceflight, this is not a standard feature. It is a design philosophy about what long-duration human occupation actually requires psychologically. When Shenzhou 18 crew members gave a tour in 2024, the footage confirmed spacious individual compartments, each with a large window offering an unobstructed view of the planet below. The daily schedule is structured, but not militaristic. The crew wakes with a call from Mission Control in Beijing. Personal hygiene involves rinse-free shampoo, wet wipes, a heated towel system, and a specialized shower cap for hair. Breakfast is followed by equipment checks, experiment monitoring, calibration tasks, and routine maintenance. A live video conference with ground teams outlines the day's scientific objectives. There is a mandatory 1-hour rest period around midday, a practice built into China's spaceflight culture and maintained as a designed recovery period. Afternoons are dedicated to research across the module experiment racks. Exercise occupies at least 2 hours of every day, without exception. Evenings are more relaxed. Dinner together is a shared ritual. Afterward, crews have been documented streaming television dramas, sending video messages to family, and occasionally recording short live broadcasts for audiences back home. The food aboard Tiangong is worth spending real time on because it represents a genuine engineering achievement and a philosophical commitment. The menu expanded from over 120 varieties when the station opened to 190 dishes by the time of recent crew missions, including Kung Pao chicken, braised pork, dumplings, noodles, rice, soups, and fresh produce delivered by Tianzhou cargo missions every few months. Apples, oranges, and cherry tomatoes have all been documented arriving on resupply flights. The greenhouse experiment running aboard Tiangong adds another dimension entirely. Taikonauts grow lettuce and cherry tomatoes in hydroponic trays inside the station. The scientific goal is developing a closed life support loop, where food production, oxygen recycling, and water recovery form an integrated biological system for future long-duration missions. The practical effect right now is that crew members occasionally eat food they have grown themselves in orbit. The most significant food-related engineering story is the microwave. The International Space Station has never had one. ISS crews use a warm water rehydrator that takes approximately 30 minutes to heat a meal. Tiangong has a purpose-built space microwave that operates on extremely low wattage and was engineered through nearly a decade of development to withstand launch vibrations and orbital radiation. It can prepare a hot meal for 3 crew members in 7 minutes. This sounds trivial until you understand what it means psychologically. Extended research on astronaut well-being during long-duration missions consistently identifies food, warmth, and quality as significant contributors to morale and mental health. The decision to engineer a microwave for space, rather than accept the limitations of what came before, reflects a design philosophy that treats psychological sustenance as mission-critical infrastructure. The scientific output from the station is now quantifiable. As of December 2024, 181 scientific and application projects had been implemented, nearly 2 tons of scientific materials transported to orbit, nearly 100 types of experimental samples returned to Earth, and over 300 terabytes of scientific data collected. 2 specific biological breakthroughs confirmed in that report are the cultivation of new rice germplasm in microgravity and the successful differentiation of human embryonic stem cells into blood progenitor cells in orbit. The first is relevant to space agriculture for long-duration missions. The second is relevant to regenerative medicine research that simply cannot be conducted in Earth's gravity. These are not incremental results. They are the kind of findings that justify the existence of a space station. The Mengtian cargo airlock is one of Tiangong's most operationally significant features, and one of the least discussed outside specialist coverage. Traditional spacewalk-dependent science deployment requires taikonauts to suit up, exit the station, traverse the exterior, install or retrieve an experiment package, and reverse the entire procedure. The time cost is enormous. Mengtian's system allows experiments to be loaded inside the module, sealed into a pressurized compartment, depressurized to match the exterior vacuum, and then deployed or retrieved by the robotic arms without any human leaving the pressurized interior. This dramatically increases the rate at which external experiments can be cycled and reduces the physical toll on crew members who would otherwise spend that time in the demanding conditions of spacewalk operations. The robotic arm system spans a combined 15 meters when the Tianhe primary arm and the Wentian secondary arm work in combination. Both are 7 degree of freedom systems with visual measurement sensors, joint torque sensors, and end effector force sensors. They can be operated from inside the station or directly by mission control in Beijing. Their published design intent includes future use cases, such as assembling additional orbital infrastructure and assisting with autonomous spacecraft docking. No account of Tiangong's operational history is complete without the debris incident of November 2025, which became the most significant emergency in China's crewed space program. Commander Chen Dong of the Shenzhou 20 crew was conducting final checks on the return capsule before the planned return to Earth. He noticed what he later described as looking like a triangular mark on the viewport window. His first instinct was that a leaf had somehow attached to the outside. His next thought was the realization that leaves do not exist 400 kilometers above Earth. What he had found was a crack penetrating through multiple layers of window glass, caused by a debris fragment estimated at smaller than 1 millimeter in diameter, traveling at extremely high velocity. The crack extended over 1 centimeter and penetrated through to the inner glass layers. The risk of heat and pressure during re-entry causing catastrophic crack propagation was deemed unacceptable. What followed demonstrated the maturity of China's emergency infrastructure. 20 days after the initial delay was announced, an uncrewed Shenzhou 22 launched, carrying food, medical supplies, fresh produce, and a window crack repair device developed specifically for this situation. The original crew returned safely to Earth using the Shenzhou 21 spacecraft belonging to their replacement crew. A subsequent spacewalk by the incoming crew documented the full extent of the window damage with high-definition cameras. The repair device was installed, and the damaged spacecraft returned to Earth uncrewed months later for ground inspection. The entire sequence was completed without crew injury or mission abort. The comparison with the ISS in this period of history is unavoidable. The ISS, launched in 1998, has been continuously occupied since November 2000, weighs approximately 420 metric tons, and has 16 modules. It is scheduled for decommissioning at the end of 2030, with a controlled deorbit targeting January 2031 over the uninhabited Point Nemo zone in the South Pacific. NASA has commercial station development agreements in place, but the agency's own Inspector General assessment has flagged limited market demand, inadequate funding, unreliable cost estimates, and still evolving requirements as genuine risks to any replacement being ready before the ISS comes down. Former NASA astronaut and ISS commander Leroy Chiao stated in a peer-reviewed paper published in the National Science Review in 2022 that after the ISS, China may be the only station in orbit. He was not making a political argument, he was making a timeline and engineering observation. That observation is looking increasingly accurate. China's expansion plan for Tiangong involves adding a multi-docking adapter to the forward end of the Tianhe core module, allowing 3 additional laboratory modules to connect. This would expand from 3 modules to 6, increasing total habitable volume from its current level to roughly 40% of the ISS. The backup Tianhe core module, built as a contingency unit during initial construction, could be integrated as a secondary command and living hub, giving the station additional redundancy. The international dimension of Tiangong's future has moved from statements to confirmed operational reality. Pakistan and China signed a cooperation agreement in February 2025, and 2 Pakistani Air Force pilots have been selected as the first foreign astronaut candidates for Tiangong training, with one of them expected to fly as a payload specialist on a future mission. Scientists from 17 countries, including Switzerland, Poland, Germany, and Italy, are already running experiments aboard the station. The country excluded from the ISS program in 2011 is now building its own international coalition for Tiangong. What Tiangong represents when you step back from the engineering details is a complete reorientation of the question that dominated space exploration for 50 years. The ISS asked what nations could build together if they cooperated. Tiangong asks what a single, determined civilization builds when it is told it cannot participate. The answer, assembled in 18 months between 2021 and 2022, is a station whose crew eat hot food from a microwave that took a decade to engineer, sleep in private rooms with windows facing Earth, grow vegetables in a greenhouse 400 kilometers above the ground, and conduct science that is producing results with implications for medicine and agriculture back on the planet below. The ISS will come down. The date is set. What replaces it in the West remains genuinely uncertain. What is certain is that Tiangong will still be up there when the ISS makes its final re-entry, and the crew on board will be eating dinner, watching television, and preparing for the next morning's work, in orbit, in a station that the exclusion meant to prevent them from building helped them build better than anyone expected. If this changed how you think about what is actually happening in space right now, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss what we cover next. Drop a comment below with your answer to this question. When the ISS comes down at the end of this decade, do you think the West will have a replacement ready in time? Or will China be the only country with humans permanently in orbit? Tell us what you think.